Namaskar. The Rajiv years, October 1984 to December 1989, problems at the very outset. Appointed Prime Minister after the assassination of his mother Indira Gandhi on October 31st, 1984, Rajiv Gandhi faced major problems from the very outset on the domestic front. Anti-Sikh riots, even as the news of Indira Gandhi's death became known, there were sporadic incidents of violence showing anger at the assassination, perhaps a spontaneous reaction in the circumstances. But as her body lay in a state at Teen Murti House, Nehru's residence as Prime Minister, these sporadic incidents had deepened and widened. By November 1, there seemed to be an organized and brutal mob violence against Sikhs. There was a continual replay on Doordarshan, the state-owned and only television channel available at the time. At the time of the crowds filling past paying their respects to the assassinated Prime Minister, with the grieving son beside the body, and the sorts of the crowdside shouting revenge. This would have further instigated the mob. While most of the Sikhs targeted were in the settlement colonies in North Delhi, inhabited by the poorer sections of the population, there was some looting and killing in middle and upper middle class localities as well. The mobs were composed mainly of Hindus drawn from the scheduled caste sweepers who worked in the city, and Jat farmers and Gujar pastoralists from villages on the fringes as pointed out by Ramchandra Guha and many newspaper reports of the time. Killed thousands of Sikhs, burnt their homes and looted their houses and businesses. Witnesses indicated that several Congress leaders has instigated and encouraged these mobs. Rumor stoked the violence. The role of the police and the administration was shocking. The police either turned a blind eye, refused to take action, or more comprehensively actively helped the mob. The riots went on unabated for 2 days. The Prime Minister and his Home Minister Narasimha Rao did not call in the army immediately. The army could have quelled the riots at once and effectively. It was late in November 2 that Rajiv Gandhi declared over radio and television that acts of rioting should be stopped and that these were casting a slur on the late Prime Minister. It was only by November 3 that the army got its orders to take steps to control the situation. Though we boast of being the world's largest democracy and the Delhi being its national capital, the sheer mention of the incident of 1984 anti-Sikh riots in general and the role played by Delhi police and the state machinery in particular makes our heads hang in shame in the eyes of the world polity. Delhi High Court in 2009, on the birth anniversary of Indira Gandhi on November 19, Rajiv Gandhi in a speech said that when a great tree falls, the earth around it shakes. It was taken to imply a justification of the riots. Even if one agrees with that the public anger was great after the assassination, it was an insensitive remark for a prime minister to make. The anti-Sikh riots was the official term given to the violence, but many called it genocide. It was an unforgettable and tragic plot in the history of India since independence. The silver lining in an otherwise dark spot in India's history lay in the efforts made by many Hindus to hide and help Sikh families during the rioting. The Bhopal gas tragedy on December tragedy. The Bhopal gas tragedy on December 3, 1984. The Bhopal gas tragedy. The Bhopal gas tragedy. The Bhopal gas tragedy. The Bhopal gas tragedy. The Bhopal gas tragedy on December 3, 1984, India faced another great tragedy, a leak of the toxic methyl isocyanate MIC gas from the pesticide plant of the US multinational company Union Carbide UCC at Bhopal killed thousands and left many more impaired for life. The gas caused internal hemorrhage, lung failure and death. Worst affected were the inhabitants of the villages and slums in the neighboring areas of the factory. It was one of the worst industrial tragedies of the world. The plant should not have been allowed in the city in the first place. Further, it seemed to have disregarded safety measures several times. After the disaster, UCC tried its best to reduce on responsibility for the gas leak by shifting culpability to the Indian subsidiary UCIL, stating that the plant was wholly built and operated by UCIL. Soon after, the first multi-billion-dollar lawsuit was filed by an American attorney in a US court, and the legal battles and mechanizations began with the ethical implications of the tragedy and its effect on the people being pushed to the background. In March 1985, the Bhopal gas leak disaster act was enacted by the Indian government so as to ensure speedy and equitable settlement of claims arising from the incident. As per the act, the government became the sole representative of the victims in legal proceedings anywhere in the world. Eventually, all cases were removed from the US jurisdiction and shifted to Indian jurisdiction under the aegis of the Supreme Court of India. UCC agreed to pay $470 million to the Indian government to be distributed to claimants as a full and final settlement. The figure was based on a number of claimants that was on the lower side, whereas the actual number came to be much larger. There were allegations that American pressure and political influence had resulted in the UCC chairman Warren Anderson being allowed to leave India for the US without being arrested. The controversy continues, and so do the troubles of the people who suffered from the fallout of the gas leak and had to do with such low compensation. The 1985 general elections, Rajiv Gandhi on assuming the post of Prime Minister. The 1985 general elections, Rajiv Gandhi, on assuming the post of Prime Minister in October 1994, recommended early elections. General elections were to be held in January 1985. Instead, they were held in December 1994. The Congress I won an overwhelming majority, securing more than 400 seats, the largest ever majority in independent India's Lok Sabha election history till then. The mandate was partly the result of sympathy, waving largely from a desire to keep extremism and separatism down. Rajiv Gandhi, who now assumed the post of Prime Minister, was also the youngest person to do so in India. The March 1985 elections to assemblies in 11 states brought the Congress I to power in 8 of them, tackling the tension in states. Several ethnic conflicts raged in different parts of the country when Rajiv Gandhi took over as Prime Minister. Some of these were settled, but others continued to cause trouble. As Punjab was a big burning problem, Akali leaders were freed and an agreement was signed by the Akali leader Sant Harcharan Singh Longowal and Rajiv Gandhi in July 1985, but in August Longowal was shot dead. However, state elections were held in September, and in what was seen as a vote against extremism, the Akali Dal came to power with a comfortable majority, but militancy was not to end so easily. It reared its head soon, and the Golden Temple was once again being used by militants, this time around strong. In fact, even ruthless action by the police under J.F. Rubeiro and KPS Gill brought the situation under control. After Operation Black Thunder was launched in May 1988 to flush out militants from the Golden Temple, it was a smoother and cleaner operation, but then there was no charismatic leader like Bidran Wale this time around to whip up emotions. Even so, militancy did not quite die down for quite some time in the state. The Chandigarh issue continues to rankle. Assam was torn by violent agitation in the 1970s and the 1980s over the influx of foreigners. Rajiv Gandhi and the All Assam Students Union AASU signed an accord on August 15, 1985, which President rule was removed and elections held in December. The AASU became a political party, the Assam Gana Parishad, and contested the polls. It emerged victorious, leaving the Congress far behind. Yet another agreement was that between the centre and Mijos in 1986, whereby the Mijos rebels surrendered their arms. Mizoram was granted statehood. The Mizo National Front, under the leadership of Lal Denga, once a fiery rebel calling for secession from India, came to power as Chief Minister of Mizoram, which became the 23rd state of India in February 1987. Problems however, arose in other parts of the country as well as in the same states later. The Gorkha National Liberation Front under Subhas Ghai Singh represented the interests of the Nepali-speaking population in the Darjeeling district of West Bengal and began demanding a separate state for themselves. Ghai Singh, after meeting Rajiv Gandhi, was persuaded to accept an autonomous district council. Tripura was torn by agitation and clashes between the tribals and Bengalis who had come onto the state after partition. The Tripura National Volunteers (TNV) adopted the way of terrorists, intimidating civilians and the police with kidnappings and murders. In August 1988, a memorandum of understanding was signed in which TNV decided to abjure violence, give up secessionist, secessionist, secessionist demands and to hold secessionist demands and to hold negotiations for a peaceful solution of all the problems of Tripura within the constitution of India. It was agreed by the Indian government that seats for the tribals in the legislative assembly would be increased and that some more villages would be brought under the purview of the autonomous tribal councils. The terms of surrender were chucked out through talks between the centre and the Tripura government and the TNP. The troubles were not, however, quite over. In Assam, there was a violent agitation led by the Bodo tribals against local Assamese. The leadership was given by the All Bodo Students Union. Some kind of resolution of problem lay some years in the future. In Jammu and Kashmir, a different kind of problem arose on Sheikh Abdullah's death. His son Farooq Abdullah had become the chief minister of the state, but Indira Gandhi had removed him. Now, with Rajiv Gandhi as prime minister, the Congress and the National Conference formed a coalition caretaker government in Jammu and Kashmir in 1986. Elections were held in 1987. The Muslim United Front (UMUF), formed by a group of Kashmiris who sought greater autonomy from the centre, was also in the front. There was wide-ranging rigging in the elections to favour the Congress National Conference, so that the results went overwhelmingly in favour of that group. This was a most unfortunate thing to happen. Even in fair and free election, the Congress Nancy group would probably have won, but now the unfair practices created disappointment and anger and alienation from the Indian state. This was the beginning of the militancy in Kashmir, with some of the Kashmiri youth turning to Pakistan for help. Positive steps taken on the domestic front. Rajiv Gandhi, as a fresh face in politics, came to power with a lot of goodwill from the people. He tried to change the way things worked within his party. He indicated that he would not tolerate incompetency, corruption and sycophancy. He introduced modern managerial techniques and tried to bring younger, more dynamic people into the decision-making process of the Congress. In the long run, the effort did not work. The Congress culture was too entrenched, and even the young who began hopefully were soon drawn into the old ways. He tried to cut red tape and make the administration more open and less rigid. Anti-Defection Act. One of the first things Rajiv Gandhi did as Prime Minister was to get the anti-defection law passed in January 1985. As a result, any elected prime member of a legislature at the central or state level could not join an opposition party until the next election, or he would be disqualified as a member of the House. The measure was aimed at curbing corruption and bribery of MPs and MLAs to switch parties so as to manipulate the members in the House to form the government. Environmental legislation. An outcome of the Bhopal gas tragedy was the increase in environmental awareness and activism in India. Rajiv Gandhi, as Prime Minister, responded positively. In 1986 came the Environment Protection Act (EPA), under which the Ministry of Environment and Forests (MOEF) was created. In 1986 came the Environment Protection Act (EPA), under which the Ministry of Environment and Forests (MOEF) was created, with overall responsibility of administering and enforcing environmental laws and policies. EPA gave authority to the centre to issue direct orders to close, prohibit or regulate any industry. In enabling law, it delegates wide powers to the executive, allowing it to make rules to manage different issues. In 1987, amendments to the Factories Act 1948 empowered the states to appoint site appraisal committees to guide the location of factories using hazardous processes. Systems were also set up to ensure the safety of workers and nearby residents, and emergency disaster control plans specified by 1989. The hazardous waste management and handling rules had been enacted for management, storage and import of hazardous chemicals, but it would be in 1991 before the enactment of the Public Liability Insurance Act to provide for immediate relief to persons affected by accidents while handling hazardous substances, improving local government. Rajiv Gandhi saw the ineffective manner in which the Panchayati Raj system worked in states and tried to amend the situation through a constitutional amendment that called for regular Panchayati elections. Being mandatory. The law could not be passed in his tenure. The law could not be passed in his tenure, but the effort had been made, and in the coming years the local government system would get constitutional sanction, first step towards liberalizing the economy. The first budget presented by the Rajiv Gandhi government by the Finance Minister V.P. Singh sought to remove some of the controls that were stifling the growth of the economy. Besides simplifying the licensing scheme, the trade regime was liberated with reduction in duties on several import items and incentives to promote exports. Tax rates were reduced and curbs on company assets were loosened. As a result of these steps, business houses did well and the growth rate of industry was good. However, the period also saw businessmen and politicians getting closer with the former, doling out gifts even of money that were eagerly accepted by the latter of for favor done. Real estate became a potent source of corruption and unaccounted money with the politician. However, by the end of his term as a prime minister, Rajiv Gandhi faced with several problems in the country went back to populism. Taxes were increased on consumer durables and air travel made more expensive. In April 1999, the National Rural Employment Program (NREP) and the Rural Landless Employment Guarantee Program (RLEGP) were merged into a single program, the Jawahar Rozgar Yojana Technology Missions. Imbued with the desire to reform the socio-economic situation in India, 6 technology missions were set up under Rajiv Gandhi's direction. The idea was to use science and technology to tackle under development. The scientific purpose was to be applied for solving problems. The target-oriented projects and intended that India should enter the millennium as a modern nation. The drinking water mission aimed at using satellites and disciplines of geology, civil engineering, and biochemistry in locating, extracting, and purifying water so that all people in the country could have safe drinking water. There were missions directed towards improving milk yield and health of cows, expanding the production of edible oils so that imports could be curbed, improving health of people, especially through immunization of children against polio, and increasing literacy by spreading the television network to rural areas and using it as a medium. These were all good ideas and evolved into other programs over time. The best known of the missions was that of telecommunications, realizing the importance of communications to reach from remote corners of the vast country. Rajiv Gandhi wanted improvement of service dependability and accessibility of telecom across India. Indigenous development, local talent, and privatization were part of the missions. Sam Pitroda, a young US-trained Indian telecom expert, became Rajiv Gandhi's advisor on this as well as the other technology missions. He was made the chairman of the Telecom Commission. The Mahanagar Telecom Nigam Limited, popularly known as MTNL, was set up. Computerization was another field in which Rajiv Gandhi's initiative has to be appreciated. His government took steps to make it easy for large-scale computerization with reduction of import duties on components so that domestic manufacturers could increase production. Laws were liberalized to allow foreign manufacturers to enter the market so that quality and competitive prices could be ensured. Use of computers in schools and offices was encouraged. As a result of these measures, India was soon to emerge as a major software exporter. Some people have called these steps as initiating the information revolution in India. Education policy. In 1968, the government and Indira Gandhi launched the first national policy of education (NP). In 1986, Rajiv Gandhi promulgated the new NPs that stressed on special emphasis on the removal of disparities and to equalize education opportunity. The policy called for expanding scholarships, adult education, recruiting more teachers from among the SCs, incentives for poor families to send their children to school regularly, development of new institutions, and provision of housing and services. Under the policy, Rajiv Gandhi included Operation Blackboard to improve the educational infrastructure at primary schools all over India. Indira Gandhi National Open University (IGNOU), a by-product of this policy, was directed towards promoting adult education. The concept of having a Navodaya Vidyalaya in every district of India was born as a part of the 1986 NP, the aim being to provide excellence along with social justice. These residential schools were meant to provide quality education free of charge to children of poor families chosen by merit who could stay in schools. The negative side: there were several areas in which Rajiv Gandhi government failed to act in a statesman-like manner or made grave tactical mistakes. The Shah Bano case. In 1985, the Supreme Court gave a decision in a case involving a Muslim divorce. Shah Bano upholding the decision of a lower court. The lower court verdict was that Shah Bano's erstwhile husband should pay her maintenance every month, while Muhammad Ahmad Khan, the husband, contended that he had paid 3 months' allowance as required, according to him, by Islamic law, invoking Section 125 of the Criminal Procedure Code (CRPC). In the apex court said that Shah Bano, not having remarried and not in a position to maintain herself, was entitled to get an allowance from the ex-husband. The court was clear that Section 125 of the CRPC would prevail over personal law in case where there is a conflict between the two. The Supreme Court even went on to say that a uniform civil code, as mentioned in the directive principles of state policy in the Constitution, would help national integration. Conservative Muslims resented the court decision as interfering with their personal law. Sometime later, an MP moved a private member's bill in Parliament to the effect that Muslims be exempted from purview of Section 125 of the CRPC. This was opposed by Arif Muhammad Khan, the Minister of State in the Home Ministry. The bill was defeated in the House, but dissatisfaction among a section of Muslims was deep, with thousands of Muslims demonstrating against the Supreme Court decision. The Rajiv Gandhi government bowed to the pressure. The Muslim Protection of Rights on Divorce Bill was introduced in the House in 1986 to overturn the Supreme Court judgment, and a whip issued to Congress MPs to vote in its favor. The bill was passed, thereby denying divorced Muslim women the right to claim maintenance order under the CRPC and confining the maintenance to the iddat, or a 3-month period. The bill placed the onus of supporting the divorced wife on her relatives or the Waqf board. Arif Muhammad Khan resigned in protest. The Babri Mosque gates opening. In British times, the Babri Mosque in Ayodhya was used by Muslims for worship. There was a platform outside the mosque where Hindus worshipped Ram. It was believed that the place was the birthplace of Ram. In 1949, an idol of Ram, Lala Baby, is said to have been placed inside the mosque. One night, Hindu devotees saw this appearance of the idol as a miracle and now wanted the place for worship. In the wake of disturbances, it was decided by the local authorities to lock the disputed premises in Ayodhya so that neither Hindus nor Muslims could use the act of worship to press their claims. Appeals were made before Faizabad court that Ram Janmabhoomi gates the unlocked on the ground that it was the Faizabad district administration and not a court that had ordered its closure. In the 1980s, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad (VHP) and other such Hindu groups launched a campaign to construct a Ram Mandir at the site. On February 1, 1986, the Faizabad district judge ordered that the doors to the mosque be opened so that the devotees could pray. According to reports at the time, the Congress government under Rajiv Gandhi ensured that the locks of the mosque were opened. Locks of the mosque were opened. According to reports at the time, the Congress government under Rajiv Gandhi ensured that the locks of the mosque were opened almost immediately after the Faizabad judge's ruling. The television cameras were present to cover the opening, suggesting that the judge's decision was done by the administration beforehand. There was a strong belief that the Rajiv Gandhi government's decision in the Ayodhya matter was made to balance the Muslim Women's Act by placating the hardcore Hindus. If the Congress thought it could undercut the BJP's temple campaign, it was mistaken. The initiative was grabbed by the Sangh Parivar. The BHP was emboldened and its attitude hardened. Now the demand for the demolition of the mosque to build a temple at the site became vociferous. The image of Rajiv Gandhi as a modern, forward-looking leader was tarnished after these two issues. As political analysts warned at the time, the policy of appeasement of communities for electoral gains could become a vicious cycle and cause much damage to the social fabric. The Wofford's scandal. There was much more trouble for the Prime Minister in March 1986 in India signed an agreement with the Swedish arms manufacturer A.V. Bofors, once owned by the Alfred Nobel, for the supply of 400 155 Howitzer guns for the Indian Army. The deal included an option to license produce 1,000 more guns. The deal amounted to $285 million, about Rs 1,500 crore, which was used for the time. Almost a year later, in April 1986, a Swedish radio report claimed that Bofors still involved payment of bribes to top Indian politicians, science and defense personnel as well as Swedish officials. The Hindu correspondent in Geneva, Chitra Subramaniam, investigated the matter on behalf of her paper and collected several documents, on the basis of which she revealed that over Rs 64 crore were indeed paid to some very powerful people. One name that appeared amidst it all was that of Ottavio Quattrocchi, an Italian businessman who represented the Italian petrochemicals from Snamproghetti, and was alleged to have become a powerful broker between the Indian government and international businesses, mainly because of his reported closeness to the Gandhi family. The Indian Express and the statesman also carried long reports on what came to be known as the Bofors scandal. In the meanwhile, BP Singh, who had been shifted from finance to defense, also seems to have uncovered details of corruption in the Bofors deal. VP Singh was finally left out of the cabinet. This seems to have increased the suspicion against the Rajiv Gandhi government and even against the Prime Minister himself. There was skepticism about Rajiv Gandhi's declaration in Parliament that no bribe was paid and no middleman was involved. Rajiv Gandhi, who had been nicknamed Mr. Clean, suffered an irreparable damage to his image. In July 1988, Rajiv Gandhi introduced what has been termed as one of the most draconian bills drafted by the Indian government. The bill was aimed at checking the freedom of the press. It provided that an editor or proprietor of a newspaper / journal could be imprisoned for criminal imputation and scrupulous writing terms, which would be defined by the state. Apparently, he was pushed into introducing the measure because of the investigative journalism into the more first scandal. The bill was ended dropped, but further damage had been done to the image of the government. Agrarian unrest. The failure of monsoons still plagued the country, and the drought in 1987 was severe, causing much rural distress. Kalahandi district in Orissa was particularly affected. The discontent in the countryside went beyond the rain-fed areas into the irrigated areas. Farmers' organizations were formed. The most famous were the Shetkari Sangatana, led by Sardar Joshi, who had once been civil servant, and the Bharatiya Kisan Union, led by Mahendra Singh Tikait, while the farmers' bus was in Maharashtra. In the latter covered Punjab and Haryana. These leaders spoke of a divide in the country between the Bharat of villages and the India of the urban middle class, with the former getting greater attention in the economic policies formulated by the government. Their demand was that there should be a high mere price for agricultural produce and subsidized power for agriculture. In actual fact, however, these organizations were representatives of the rich and middle level farmers, not the really poor sections of rural society. The poor all over India, whether in urban or in the rural areas, shared the same problems with seldom found wise foreign relations. Rajiv Gandhi set out to improve relations with the US and expanded scientific and economic ties with that country. His policies of economic liberalization and efforts on information technology brought him closer to the US and other Western nations. Rajiv Gandhi said to have used a direct private channel to Ronald Reagan, the US president. which led the cancellation of proposed supplies of AWACS aircraft to Pakistan. Despite moving closer to the West, Rajiv Gandhi did not succumb to the pressure on the nuclear non-proliferation issue, which he linked, as Indian policy had always done, to universal disarmament. In June 1988, at the 15th Special Session of the United Nations General Assembly, Rajiv spoke about a world free of nuclear weapons and put forward his action plan for ushering in a nuclear weapon-free and non-violent world order. In 1986, the president of Seychelles faced a coup and sought India's help. The Rajiv Gandhi government authorized the Indian Navy to reach the coasts of Seychelles to help forward the coup in a mission named Operation Flowers Are Blooming. Then in 1988, Maldives faced an attempted coup whose perpetrator was apparently assisted by armed mercenaries of the Tamil faction secessionist organization from Sri Lanka, the People's Liberation Organization of Tamil Elam (PLOT). The Maldives government sought India's help, upon which Rajiv Gandhi ordered the deployment of the Indian forces in an operation code-named Cactus. The coup was averted. In 1987, India reoccupied the Kuwait post in the disputed Siachen region in what was termed Operation Rajiv. In December 1988, Rajiv Gandhi became the first Indian Prime Minister since Jawaharlal Nehru in 1954 to visit China. In 1986 to 1987, there had been a standoff between India and Chinese troops at Sudorongchu on the north-eastern border. However, Rajiv Gandhi's visit led to better relations. He had a cordial meeting with Deng Xiaoping, who though he was not the head of state or head of government or general secretary of the Communist Party, was an all-important person in China. India and China signed the two crucial agreements to establish a joint working group (JWG) to seek fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable solution on the boundary question, and a joint economic group (JEG), and agreed to expand and develop bilateral relations in all fields. The IPKF misadventure. Sri Lanka was faced with an ethnic conflict between the Sinhala majority and the Tamil minority, who were inhabitants mostly of the northern part of the island. After Sri Lanka got independence from the British, Sinhala was imposed as the sole official language in the island country. The Tamilians wanted parity on all fronts, with their language given the same status as Sinhalese. There were protests when discrimination continued. Opposition to the official repressive measures took a violent turn. Soon a number of militant groups were operating in the Jaffna Peninsula against the Sri Lankan armed forces. Over time, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Elam (LTT) became the most prominent under Vellupillai Prabhakaran and took over the struggle using violence against the Sri Lankan forces as well as civilians. Their demand had progressed from autonomy to liberation from the Sri Lankan government to form an independent Tamil state, though it was an internal affair of Sri Lanka. The events in Jaffna raised tensions in Tamil Nadu, where many felt close to the Sri Lankan Tamils. The LTT used Tamil Nadu as a refuge, and the state government was sympathetic to their cause, even as the central government kept quiet. It is believed that the governments under Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi surreptitiously supported the Tamil militants, when the Sri Lankan forces responded with brutal force and blockaded the Tamil majority district of Jaffna. Rajiv Gandhi first tried to resolve the problem diplomatically, but the siege continued. India hoped the Sri Lankan government would be amenable to India sending relief supplies to the beleaguered Tamils by sea. A flotilla of Indian ships with relief supplies was blocked by the Sri Lankan Navy as they approached the territorial waters of Sri Lanka. On June 4, 1987, the Indian government ordered relief supplies to be airdropped into the area on humanitarian grounds in what was called Operation Puma Lai, also Eagle Mission 4. In what was called Operation Puma Lai, also Eagle Mission 4, after warning Sri Lanka not to try and stop the planes, India was criticized by some nations for the action, even as Sri Lanka accused India of blatant violation of sovereignty. The US expressed regret over the incident but added no further comment. India wanted the airdrop to send a message. The siege of Jaffna was lifted and there was a declaration of ceasefire in Sri Lanka Accord 1987, July 1987, and the Sri Lankan President J.R. Jayawardene asked Rajiv Gandhi to mediate in the island country's ethnic conflict. As a result, the Indo-Sri Lanka Peace Accord was signed by the two leaders in Colombo on July 29, 1987. Incidentally, it was on the occasion of this visit to Colombo that Rajiv Gandhi was assaulted by a Sri Lankan in the guard of honor held for the Indian Prime Minister in what seemed an attempted assassination. Rajiv Gandhi escaped with serious injury. The peace accord was perhaps too ambitious in its scope, seeking to address three contentious issues: the strategic interests, people of Indian origin in Sri Lanka, and the rights of Tamils in Sri Lanka. Under the terms of the agreement, the Sri Lankan government would devolve power to the Tamil majority area. The Sri Lankan troops would withdraw to their barracks in the north, and the Tamil militants would surrender their arms. Beside the LTTE being dissolved, Tamils was to be designated an official language of Sri Lanka. Significantly, the Tamil groups were not party to the talks that led to the agreement. It was under the accord that the Indian Peacekeeping Force (IPKF) was sent to Sri Lanka's northern and eastern provinces where the Tamils were in majority to guarantee and there enforce the cessation of hostilities between the Tamil separatist groups and the government. The LTT, however, refused to surrender arms and began threatening Tamils who opposed the militant group. The IPKF and the LTT became involved in a military confrontation. The IPKF was working under severe strategic constraints. The scene of action was an island nation. The war was an unconventional one, being waged against a group that had strong emotional connections with Tamil Nadu, and the Indian intervention evoked hostile reaction from the Sinhalese as well as they felt their sovereignty to be undermined. Finally, the IPKF captured the LTT headquarters in Jaffna, but the militants retreated into the jungles from where they used guerrilla tactics to keep the forces at bay. A large number of Indian soldiers died and the cost of the operation was huge. Back in India, the pressure was on the government to recall the force. In the end, the IPKF adventure was to be the cause for the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi on May 21, 1991 during his election campaign in Tamil Nadu, and at Sri Perumbudur, a woman went to touch his feet and exploded an explosive device attached to her. The suicide bomber belonged to the LTT, and her action was in retaliation of India's role in Sri Lanka. General elections of 1999, BP Singh, on leaving the Congress, floated the Jan Morcha along with Arun Nehru and Arif Muhammad Khan, both of whom had parted ways with Rajiv Gandhi. Later, this group merged with the Janata Party, Lok Dal, and Congress as to form a new party, the Janata Dal, with the idea of bringing together centrist parties opposing the Congress government under Rajiv Gandhi. The Janata Dal then joined a set of regional parties which included the DMK, the Telugu Desam Party, and the Assam Gana Parishad, in a coalition which came to be called National Front. In November 1989, general elections were held for the Lok Sabha, and by then the opposition to Rajiv Gandhi had consolidated and a coordinated strategy was adopted. The Congress did badly in the election, though it still managed to be the largest single party in the Lok Sabha. People had lost faith in Rajiv Gandhi in the face of the accusations of corruption. In 1989 election was the first in which no single party got a majority on its own. At that time itself, some commentators indicated that the election marked a milestone, the beginning of a coalition and a period of political instability. Rajiv Gandhi resigned in December 1989. His party chose to sit in the opposition as it did not have the majority or the support to form the government after the elections. धन्यवाद. Thank you so much.